Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you are listening or watching us. And thank you so much for being part of the material business community. My name is Monica Hernandez, and today I have a super amazing guest. Andrea, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Monica. Thank you. It's an honor to be your guest today. I'm so excited.
See, that's the energy of Colombian. So we're going to talk with Andrea today about a bunch of different things. But one of the really good takeaways, I guess, from this in this time together, and what we want to transfer to you guys is how we can wear more than one hat and how we can be successful at doing it. So we can be, Andrea, the engineer, Andrea, the successful mother, Andrea, the successful entrepreneur, Andrea. So many different aspects of our life. And one doesn't compromise the other, or the other doesn't compromise the one. And it makes us grow as people, and it makes us whole. So we're going to talk with Andrea about that. So I'm just going to go ahead and introduce her. Andrea Paola Marciales Ramirez is a dynamic professional engineer with a rich background spanning chemical engineering and the oil and gas industry and internal corrosion management. Beyond her engineering expertise, Andrea is fervently dedicated to leveraging technology to bolster engineering businesses, enhancing their online visibility through innovative digital marketing strategies. As a recent mother and a figure embodying multiple intersections, immigrant, woman in STEM, and a person of color, Andrea is a vocal advocate for diversity and inclusion within the Canadian engineering sector. Her activism shines through her involvement with the Women in Engineering Summit, where she works tirelessly to foster a more inclusive environment. Originating from Colombia and carving her professional path in Canada, Andrea's journey is marked by a broad spectrum of experiences, from conducting comprehensive scientific and applied research to executing professional engineering projects in the oil and gas industry. Alongside maintaining her full-time role, Andrea is also venturing into entrepreneurship. Go, Andrea. Her career encompasses roles in nonprofit fundraising and marketing strategy, demonstrating her multifaceted skill and set and adaptability. Driven by a commitment to community service, Andrea aims to create nurturing environments that promote optimal professional growth. Her mission is to inspire a more diverse engineering field, empowering individuals to pursue their passions and achieve their dreams through a results-oriented approach. So that's a lot of hats that you're wearing, Andrea. Thank you again for coming and being, that that person that takes the torch, and it's shining light in so many people's lives.
Thank you very much.
So what inspired you to go into an engineering career, and how did you started that journey?
Wow. Okay. That's a very easy question for now to answer. Being a child, I was always very curious, like super curious, like almost driving you crazy type of curious. I was always the kind of girl that was in class asking why does this happen? Why, I don't know, is the sky blue? Why does it rain backwards, like towards the ground and not like the other way? Why water rains, not coffee rains or milk? Like those kind of silly questions that kids do. So I have a couple of uncles when I was that little that were pursuing engineering and STEM, and they were always explaining to me. So it reached a point in which at school I was already taking chemistry classes and math classes and physics classes, and I was the nerd that was after class asking the professors for more. So I'll give you an example. While every kid in my school was studying with ninth grade or 12th or I don't know, whatever grade of high school books are, I was studying with undergrad chemical engineering books because I love chemistry. And I have to be very thankful to my uncles that are engineers because they always encouraged me to learn more, and they were nerds too. So they didn't see it as a bad thing. On the contrary, they were like, oh, you like this? So let me give you this. Let's discuss about this. Let me explain you this. You have to learn this too. And we were discussing even calculus at some point and things like that. And when I was doing my high school, I had this chemistry teacher that her son was also studying chemical engineering. And she was very excited because she couldn't find a person that was so inclined to chemistry as her, like me. So she came with her son's books and she started borrowing them to me. And because I was asking questions that were beyond the book. So instead of going and telling me, like, why are you not waiting for university, I was just already studying chemistry. So when I arrived to do my chemical engineering degree, I was like level 2 or Chem 2 of school. So I was very, very, very nerdy. And I knew like STEM and engineering is my passion. So that was an easy pick and that was an easy answer. I hope that answers your question. And I was always a nerd, but I was like, I don't care. So the good
Who
point
said
is
it's a
that,
bad thing? Who said it's a bad thing?
well, growing up, I remember there's even a movie called The Revenge of the Nerds. And I was like, is being nerd a bad thing? I was a nerd, like whatever, but every time, kids, my classmates, they were like asking, oh, we have a homework and we want the teacher to forget about it. Andrea, go and ask something. So I was like, oh, I always have a question for asking. So I was always in charge of making the teacher to forget about homework. And they really were a bit scared because I was the kind of person that, I don't know, was a kid in class that was always going after after class and going with a book and showing the professor, like I was going to libraries, and the libraries have this card system. There was no Google or anything. So I was going to the book and I was going to the professor, like, this book says otherwise what you teach in class. So why are you telling me this? This is kind of wrong. And they were so mad. So up to date, like, I know I didn't go for literature studies. You imagine why I didn't go for law. I went for facts-based science, and that was easy because science is science. It's not abstract or subjective. So yes, that's my life, and that's how I turned out into chemical engineering. And I knew it was chemical engineering, and I still love it. Like, that's my heart. That's why when you introduced me, I was like, oh my god, yes, my heart belongs to chem. But anyways, I do more other things. It's just like my first love with science. Yeah.
That's amazing. And thank you for sharing. A lot of the people that have come to the podcast have had someone or many people, like in your case, that gave them this power, like you said. Instead of saying, why are you asking those questions? Those are questions for older age or better, like further grades. They were giving you the tools to explore further. And that is how you got more excited about it, because I kind of say people don't tell you no, is they push you to develop those abilities. So that's one of the commonalities that I have seen from people that have been in the podcast.
Well, that's great. I'm not the only one. I am really grateful to my high school teacher and my uncles. Like,
yeah,
I still mention them, and I love this. She called me her daughter in engineering or daughter in science to this day. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So now, what was that pivotal moment when, because you love engineering, you love doing the science, but then at some point you discovered, hey, I want something else. I want to do something extra, or I can do something else. Like, what inspired that little kind of ghost within you?
Oh, that's also, I have talked about that with a couple of people. And this is not a very hard question, but it's very broad. So I'll tell you this. When I was a little girl, I remember giving food to school. Like, my mom gave me food, and arepas, we are Colombian, so they gave me arepas, very delicious. To this day, my mom prepared amazing arepas. So I was a kid, and then I took them to school, and then my classmates were like, I want to bite. So they started eating all my lunch, my break food. And I was so mad. So my mom was like, why don't you sell them the food? Just sell them. And then I start selling them. And I was like, oh my God, they really buy it. And then I start selling other things like decorated pens. I remember there was Lion King at that time when I was a child. So my aunts were very absent. I started selling whatever, like a lot of things. And then they told me like, oh, this is wrong, because they knocked me in front of the whole class. And then I felt very bad about selling. Like they make me feel guilty. So, but then I started growing up, and then at some point when I was doing my undergrad at university, they start talking about entrepreneurship again, but more of a like offer a service, and it's not a bad thing to sell. And then I did a class, and then at the end I ended up getting a job because I needed to get my engineering, and I got a job and I forgot about it. But when I was here in Canada, it came back to me again, and it kept bugging. It's like, Andrea, why do you have to wait for someone to tell you that you can do something? Why do you have to wait for getting your boss validation or getting someone else validation that you are good to go or you are good to try? Or why do you have to be tied to your like square box of like, I'm an engineer and I do from here to here? Because I know, professionally speaking, there is a recommendation by standards that you practice on something that you know, or there's someone that knows that can guide you. But entrepreneurship is not necessarily inside the engineering box. So it doesn't mean that you don't try. So I went and studied a lot of courses, and I did even, there was at that time the Edmonton startup, now it's called Edmonton Unlimited, and start learning about it. And what it says is that you find a problem and you just solve it. And if people pay you for it, you could be an entrepreneur. So I started trying that. And I was like, well, what problem can I solve? What problem can I solve that people really care and they're willing to pay for it? And then starting in that mindset of thinking, I learned about, like, I got coaches and they told me, well, you have to deliver value. And being an engineer, you want to measure everything. You want to measure numbers, and you want to do something that you can track progress. So I was looking for a field, and that's the same way I got into corrosion. We can talk about it too, but I got into a field that can always help a business, and you can measure and you can track and you can leverage that. So I had a lot of brainstorming to do, and that's how I ended up where I am. But long story short, the idea of entrepreneurship came because of different reasons. The first one is because it's like getting on your own hands your future. Like, you don't depend on someone to come and tell you, yes, you can go and do it. No, you do it. Of course, you're more responsible. You cannot blame anyone. And you're working more. Like those, I don't know, those people that they are online and they say, yeah, if you start this business, you're going to live on the beach and not working like up to 1 hour a day. I think that's a lot of, I don't want to say any wild word, but that's not true. I think you work more. But it's more rewarding because no one else is taking care of your credit. And the one thing I love the most about is that it's free hands-on. It's like you have the full range of options to try what you want and go for it. And the best part is that, you know, in a school, they teach you something that is like, oh, it's bad to lose an assignment, or you go and have an exam and you fail it and it's terrible because you can't fail a course in a class. Being an entrepreneur, you can fail something and it doesn't matter. You just go and try it again and try it again and try it again until it works. And it's like, yeah, I know something and I learned something. And then, because it's of you, it's your work, no one can take that away. I love that. So I don't know if that answers the question, but if you want to discuss something else, that's what bugs me and keeps me moving forward. That's 100% correct. I think one of the things I learned the most, I have this survival job, and it was in sales. So I used to sell clothes, and I used to sell commission based. So if some of you saw me selling clothes, it's like, oh my God, yes, you sell me something. So it was here in Canada, by the way, a boutique, and doesn't exist anymore. Well, it exists, but it's one. I don't want to talk about the brand exactly, but one of the things that experience taught me the most is that not all days are good, and everything is on the mindset. So I remember having days in which, oh my God, I was selling, let's say, by myself about $5,000 on clothes, and I was like, this is amazing. And then the next one, it was terrible. I couldn't sell anything. And then my boss come to me and is asking me like, what's wrong with you? Why are you like with this attitude? Why are you so sad? You have to keep going. And I was like, but today was a bad day. I don't know. I'm trying and nothing works. And I'm very stressed. It's like, I'm going to send you home if you continue like that. Just smile. I was like, but I'm very sad. Smile even if you don't feel like it. Just smile for God's sake. Because I was like, right? So one of the things that experience told me is like, don't let it get into your head and just keep trying. So I went in and was just listening. I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this as a scientific experiment because I'm a sciencey person. It's like, I'm going to try what he's saying. Option A, option B, option C. I'm going to smile for once and see what happens. Just as a scientific experiments, like action reaction kind of situation. And I went and tried. And yes, like I noticed, okay, not all days are going to be amazing because probably as an engineer mindset comes and says, yes, this is a physical mathematical model, input, output. You have the function and then you do the data and you plug it in and it should resolve on this. No, there's are many variables you cannot control outside of you. So that's the other thing I learned. But at least something changed. And then like when you try again and change the mindset of not letting being defeated because something didn't work at the first time or it's not working, then I could see the result. So that's that mindset of the failure versus like keep trying it approach was the one that is like taught me the most important lesson when I was selling clothes, which is interesting because what is an engineer doing selling clothes? That's what my dad asked me, like, why are you doing selling clothes? This is not for you. It's like, well, I'm learning sales. Right? And rejection. I think was the other let's say freaky point about entrepreneurship is facing rejection. And then the day I understood people don't reject you as a person, they reject what you're selling or what you're proposing, that made a big difference, right? So it's like, let it through. So I think those are the two lessons, and that's what was the hardest part to understand, like completely understand, and that what keeps me moving forward. It's like, okay, if I face a rejection one day, it's okay. Someone would say yes, someone would say no. Just keep trying.
So thank you so much for giving us all that information about how failure makes you successful at the end and how being in a position that teaches you something different, very far away from what you're used to, it actually adds up at the beginning, at the end of the equation, and it helps you be better professional. And in an overall, it will prepare you for things that you can entertain later on in your career. You said something about not having control, and that's a hard lesson, at least for me. I had to when I was pregnant with my son. And that was the first time that I felt I had control, not control about even my body. I need something that allowing that process is somehow complicated because we want, like you were saying, number equation, and then process, put it into a box, check it off, and then give a result. Things in life don't really work like that because there is other things that don't work. And you're a newer mom. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
So lots of learnings that come with motherhood, but especially I want you to touch base on the fact that we lose a little bit of control, and we want somehow we want the control, but we don't have it anymore. So how have you integrated that into the new person you are?
Wow, I'm still working on that. I'll be honest. I'm like you. And what you're talking is so true. When I was pregnant, I experienced being not myself. Like it's like something to cover me, and it was not me anymore. I was somewhere in the back of my body, trying to come out and trying to control, or not just control, like to even guide it. Right. I think the best way is to give myself or cut myself some slack. It's not like being lazy or Slack work or anything, I remember I watched this presentation. I don't know if you know her, Kinia Romanowska. She's a STEM mom coach,
Mhm.
and she's really good because she's focused on STEM. And I remember her presentation, and she's saying that you are your bigger judge, and that's so true. So something she mentioned is like, okay, talk to you as if you're your best friend. How would you talk to you if you were your best friend happening to go through the same situation? And then when I adopted that mindset, a lot of things shift for me because I don't know, like maybe because of the STEM background, you tend to be very competitive and measuring everything. Like I'm not giving this, I'm not performing here. I'm like, I don't know. So like you want to be like probably 10 out of 10 all the time, but it's like you kind of want to measure yourself up to something. And whatever it is, does something for you. So it could be like, for some people, could be like, I don't know, I want my career to go up to this level. I want to have this much income, this much salary. I want to be, I don't know, this peak, whatever it is. And then when you're going through motherhood, it's like they throw something away your path. It's like, no, forget it. It's not about you anymore, for starters. It's not about you anymore. It's about someone else that you are responsible for. And the second thing is like, come on, it's too much. You are dealing with so much at the same time. You have a lot on your plate. Just get yourself together one day at a time and cut yourself some slack because you're trying. You're trying. It's not like you're not trying. It's just that there are things or situations you cannot control. And then, but it's very challenging. I am with you. Like I'm still processing and I'm still going through that and I'm still trying and I'm still sometimes tired. I'm working and my family are like, Andrea, go and rest. It's like, no, I have to get this done. I want to move forward. And I don't know. I think it's a balance of like what you really want to what. Does it really worth it? Does it worth like to stress about this thing now? Like in 5 years, is it important? If it's not, then like manage your priorities. That's the way I cope with it because it still is not easy at all, like at all. And then I'm thinking about me as if I were my best friend. I was like, what would I tell? I don't know, my best friend. I was like, I'll be very considerate, but I'm not considerate with myself. So I, I'm trying. I'm not 100% there, but it's getting closer. So I hope that answers your question and maybe you have some experience that you can share with us.
Yeah, for sure. That I have. But we'll talk about that in the Breaking Barriers webinar that women in engineering summit and Infinity Growth are going to go together. But it's really that what you're describing is, first of all, being aware. That is, I think, one of the most difficult sides. Uh, Once you are aware, then how do you want to make it better? And then everyone, again, it has to create their own strategies. So something that perhaps works for you doesn't work for other people because their belief system is different, their energy work is different, there are so many variables. So it to me is being a self-discovery journey. And I don't think we ever are done with that. I think it is a process of life itself. So, but as you embrace it, then, and as you are open to hear and to, take perhaps some avenues that you didn't took some years ago, then that will uh, increase and give you best chances of being well, and then bringing that with you. So, but absolutely, it is like when I reflect on my life, is the first time when I lost control over my body was when I was pregnant. And it's like, you don't want to throw up, but the baby is wanting you too. So you have
you,
to.
you have.
You
So
don't
you know
want
what?
to go every 5 minutes to the bathroom, but it's that or you pee on
It,
yourself. So decide.
it was, yeah, I guess you know, I was at work and I passed out at work.
Wow.
And I was so mad because they took me to emergency and I wanted to go back to the office. So it was terrible. Like it's like, Andrea, you're crazy. And like my husband was like, you know what? Just go and rest, because if something happens to our child, it's going to be like very bad, right? And that's what I understood the first time. I'm not in control anymore. And he for like,
Mhm.
he's like, computers are forbidden for you. My boss the same. My boss was like, why are you coming back to work? Like, we have to get this done. No, just go and rest. So it's very, very difficult, especially for me as a first time mother. Maybe other women are going through the same. It's very challenging because your career and yourself are in a second level of importance at that point. And reconciliating that with what that actually means is like, no, you cannot do whatever you want anymore. Oh my God. Like, I had to step aside for a couple of days and reflect on that, because it's very, very challenging to understand and assimilate what that means. And
And I totally understand what you're saying. And I think I am very glad that when you and I spoke about this podcast, and I was like, oh my God, it's nice that we have a newer mom, because some of us forget what it was. It's nice because nobody talks about any of that. And that
no,
makes what you were saying, it makes the journey very lonely, and you feel that you're the only one, and you're not. Like, everyone has gone, every woman that has ever been pregnant has gone through the same thing. It's just because our minds are like, I want this career to be successful, and then you put your success into some scale, because that is how your mind is trained. Then
that's,
everything becomes measurable, and then that is something that you can't measure. So it is, there are just some things in life that you can't, you have to feel.
you have, yeah, yeah. And that's something very challenging, because I was hearing some other interviews there that they said that one of the challenges is that women, especially, I don't know if it's just all the women, but we tend to put, or maybe engineers as we are, we're very proud of our careers and we have achieved and we have accomplished. So it's like we kind of measure our success based on our career achievement. And then when that is not happening anymore, you cannot drive it the way you want, boop, you go bananas. Because your mindset is like, I don't know, it's like you're trying to have two
Blip,
competing
blip,
things
blip,
at
blip,
once.
blip, 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 blip.
Yeah, yeah. So it's, yeah, I'm coping with it. I'm not telling I'm doing 100% perfect, but I'm getting, at least I'm getting things under control, not under control, but under a manageable situation that I
There
don't
you
go
go.
bananas.
That's good. And it's gonna go like that for a while, until you feel comfortable. And as I said, it is nice that it's that you learn what helps you in a situation. And when you have, yeah, when you feel like, I got this, I just discovered the formula. Yeah, no, because then the babies start eating, and or they start crawling, or they start walking, or they start kindergarten, or they have a fight at school, or they got something. So there is always that challenge from life that is like, oh, you think you have it figured out? Let me show you.
Yes. Now, now that you talk about it, it's actually very good to be part of the community, because now, like when we were talking about motherhood and how when you're sick and being a mother, like handling all these things is very helpful, because when I hear you, it's like, well, this is what I should do, this is what I shouldn't do. You can get through this, you can survive this. Like I was talking to a friend about motherhood, and she's like, oh, this is nothing. Your baby is just starting to walk. Just wait until he goes to daycare, and then he starts fighting other kids, kicking other kids, and then you're going to you drop them off, and then you're going to work, and then you get a call because something happened. You cannot even go to work. So just wait for it to happen and be prepared, because it's always something happening. That that helped me a lot, because now I'm like kind of not waiting for it, but I'm prepared that okay, it's not the end of the world if this happens to me. I'm not going to be the first one or the last one. And now I'm more conscious about my coworkers, that they have kids. I was like, they manage amazing. Like, whole respects. Like, I don't know if there is well, I don't want to be sexist or play the woman card, but there should be like a recognition for women that work with kids. And it doesn't mean that the one that they don't have kids, they don't deserve it. I'm just saying that it's a whole level of complexity that you bring to the table trying to manage that, right?
It is. It is. You made me remember. I'm just gonna tell you a little story. First day of grade one, my son. We all happy, we take the picture with the little thing, first grade, blah blah blah. And I made his hair, and he's all happy. I left him at school. At noon, I get a call from school. The child had an accident. Come and pick him up. And I'm like, oh, is he conscious? And the secretary said, I don't know. They just told me to call you. And when I get there, obviously you have to run, get the car, go there. And you get there, and then the child is like blood all over the face, the whole church, everything. And I'm like, oh, what happened? So he fell down. They decided to go into that slidey thing, which is designed for one kid. Well, they were like 3 or 4 kids on it. And so when they fell down, he knocked his head with the metal base of the whole thing. So he opened up his head. So it was a mess of blood and things. So, but it was the first day of grade 1. So, it was very, very interesting on, getting to the calls. And I going to say, you can't think you're ready, but you're not. So don't be ready, because you can't be ready. Don't expect yourself to be ready, because it won't happen. At least for me, it never happens. It's like, okay, yeah, that's how I'm. The way you can be ready to is how you manage your emotions, so you can be there for the person that is needing you at that time, which is the tiny human. And that's all. But yeah, I don't think we can prepare ourselves as like, yeah, well, you're gonna get like, who would know that the first day of first grade are gonna get a call in the middle of the day to get to that, right? It's like, you can't. So I guess it's more like what you were saying, cutting some slack and understanding that there is really not that measurable thing. And then that we will just learn how to manage how we respond in order to make life easier for everyone.
That's correct. That's what I'm trying to do. It's a never
There you
ending
go.
learning.
It is not, and it's magnificent. That's why we are here on Earth, right? So it's good. It's infinity growth.
Yeah, 100%.
There you go. So, okay, so we spoke a little bit about that engineering background and the entrepreneurial, the motherhood. Now, where this advocacy and this wanting to give others something came into the equation, like how was that brought to you? Is something that you have always done? Tell us about that.
Oh, the Women Engineering Summit and all the advocacy for women.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's very straightforward. When I came to Canada, I noticed something that was very odd to me, because I probably like you work in Colombia. I used to work in Colombia, and even in my undergrad, I noticed there was like very homogeneous participation of genders, people, colors, LGBT communities, everything in my career, like chemical engineering at that time, and many other engineering fields. But when I came to Canada, I went to my class. Maybe I went to petroleum engineering, that was a lot of male-dominated environment, but still, like I went to other classes and I saw majority were men. And then when I was doing my PhD, I was going through this company where I work for right now, and I noticed there were no men doing, there were no women, I'm sorry, there were no women in the engineering roles. I was like, what's going on here? There's something odd happening. And then I went and read, and I noticed that Engineers Canada has this report that says that there is a very few women participation in engineering. I was like, what's going, like, this is really, really strange. And worse than that is that there is very few women in leadership position. So the first thing I did was I noticed there was an opening in my company. So I went to the manager, and it was very Colombian bold kind of strategy. It's like, I have to do it or I have to do it. I went to my boss and I told him, like, you don't have any women in engineering roles in this group. I want that job. What should I do? What does it take for me to get that job? And then he was like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to this day we get along very well, but he was like staring at me like this, and he's like, you should just apply through the portal. That's like, of course I'm going to apply, but what else should I do? So when I got the job, and I'm very glad, I'm very thankful for that. But when I got my job, I came to all these conferences in corrosion, and my background is corrosion in Canada, and I went to other communities of engineering. Like, I know there is this in Edmonton, there is Engineers of Alberta, there is APEGA, there are many of them, even SP and others. And then I noticed still there's not a lot of women participation. It's like, what are the women? Right? I can count them with my fingers. So I remember I met Claudia in a West APEGA event. I was volunteering, and then she started talking about women in engineering and women. I was like, what is this? What is she talking about? And then I went to their website. I was like, oh my God, I was not crazy. It was not all in my head that there's no women. So I noticed she was having this cause, and I was like, oh, I should help. I should do something about it. And I started joining. I joined with her volunteering, and I started learning about what they do and the problems. And it was like more complex than that. And I don't want to talk negatively about it. I just want to say that, okay, if I want this to change, the first thing is changing myself, and I have to do something about it instead of complaining about it. I wanted to get things like moving forward and get my action. So what can I do? So the first thing I did to go with the mindset was going through my company. And I started talking about women in engineering, EDI committees, and I was like, I'm going to get fired probably, because I was like, I'm not asking my boss if this is right or not, if they support this or not. I'm just trying to do it. Worst comes to worst, I get fired. I look for another job. But the mindset, when you see that a mindset, or when you see that thought in people, it doesn't die. So I was like, okay. I know I was very surprised and very thankful that my boss was very supportive. It's like, oh, really? You like this? Okay, let's support it. I was like, oh my God. So I was so happy. And then that's how I joined, and I started telling others, like, you should talk about this, you should do this, instead of like complaining like, oh, we women, we are not paid as much, we are just not women. No, just if you really want to make change, just join the cause, join West, or join, if you don't want West, it's okay, join other groups that are very supportive, because if you don't start by yourself, then nothing's going to happen. And after that, I'm very grateful, because I started talking about West. I remember I took Claudia and I introduced her to my VP at the company. I was like, you have to listen to her. Why? You have to listen. And I created this whole event, and everyone started talking about it. And I was so happy, because I was like, okay, at least they're aware of there's a situation going on and making things better. And things are moving, things are changing. Like, I just talked to a coworker of mine that she was part of the company like 10 years ago. And she just joined recently this year. And I asked her, like, are things different right now? Do you see a different environment for women? Are you feeling okay? It's like, yeah, it's a totally different company. So I was so happy.
Wow.
And because my work was benefiting other people, not just me. And of course, it's not just my work. I just started to get the conversation going there. And of course, there's a lot of people, like, I have to say to my manager and to all the people that support me at that time, that they were really opening to listen and making change. So long story short, that's how West came to my life. Also, I got a very, very amazing team of supporters. And that's why I'm saying being part of the community is so important, because I was going through my PH application, and at my workplace at that time, at the moment, I'm so sorry to say that they were not ready for a lot of changes that were happening. So they helped me a lot with my PH. So I got my career moving forward. I learned how to identify those things that bother you. Like, when there's something happening around you, something happening at work, and there's something that is aching and you don't exactly know how to pinpoint. It's like when you have a pain, it's like, I don't know, it's something bothering you, but I don't know if it's here or here or here. So when I went to West, they were saying, this is what it is. This is the reason. So I learned how to put names to that. And it's like, now I understand why it bothers me so much. There's actually a name for that. And then you can talk about it, and then you can know how to not being complaining, but rather than like finding a solution to overcome it. And that helped me a lot, because instead of being like, oh, Andrea, the complaining woman, she's always complaining. It's like, oh, Andrea is a bit crazy, but at least she's trying to change things, or she's trying to address it, right? And I'm very happy. Like, I don't know, they start, like, when I start talking about it at my company, they start asking me questions and doing interviews and videos around there. And I was like, you should talk to her. Like, I'm very happy. I want to pass the torch, but it's not about me. It's about the message, right? So
Totally.
that's how I joined West, and I'm really trying for other girls. And I was so surprised, other let's say EITs that join at the moment. They're like, Andrea, your story is so inspiring, because I look for jobs like there's a whole, I'm an immigrant, as you mentioned, I'm intersectional, and my accent is a bit big. So it's like, if I can do it, anyone can do it kind of mindset, right? So when they saw my stories, like, your story is so inspiring, and I'm so happy to see all those girls that are now like becoming more senior and in their careers, they're moving forward. So that's how West is so close to my heart, because when you see the impact and other people benefit, not just like inside West, but outside West, even if just the volunteers are coming through and they go and they do their own thing, it's amazing. That is a life-changing experience. And something I learned, I learned something from my work about a coworker that was retiring. And she retired. And I remember something happened at work, and I helped her find something very valuable to her by accident. And I was a person that was, like, she was an admin person, and she was a person that was very picky about documents. And I was the worst in that aspect of documents. Like, I don't know if it's everyone, but engineers don't like repetitive tasks, let alone admin. So I was the worst at that. And she retired. And then I found her in a retirement party of another coworker. And then I talked to her. I was like, oh, yes, I remember you. And I told her, like, why do you remember me? And she was like, I remember you because of how you helped me to find something I missed. I was telling her, oh, I was thinking you remember me because I was the worst at that admin task that you asked me to do, and I never did it on time. She's like, oh, what? No, I don't even remember that. I just remember that you helped me a lot. So that clicked on my head. And then someone else tell that people don't remember what you tell them or what you say or what you give to them. They remember how you make them feel.
Totally.
And that's what I want with West. Not just me, but like everyone that goes through there, they remember something positive and they learn something positive. And if someone remembers me, I wish they remember me in a good way. I don't know. I might have haters around, but I try for making a good impact in people, that when they remember me or something, they can say, well, yes, Andrea had crazy, but I got something good out of her. Yes. My goal with all this is that, okay, there's different goals. The first one is that people are having that change of culture and mindset, which is the hardest thing to do, because when someone starts doing something and then it becomes like someone else does it and then everyone does it, it's like, oh, everyone does it here. Why do you bother? So by trying to shift behaviors, somehow it starts changing culture, and then it becomes expected that you're behaving a certain way. So I hope that at least at my workplace or wherever I work with in West, people are starting to change something in them that can be reproduced, right? That's the first thing. And the second is that everyone who passes through gets something nice, and then they learn and they grow. Even if it's just a little bit, but they grow. So, and having met you is amazing, because you're in the same mindset. And when we talk about that, it's like, oh my God, it's like, yeah, 100%. That what you said is resonates a lot with me. I want to be the change of what I want to see in people. So I start by myself. I want to say a lot of things. I just want to say thank you for now. I hope that they gain something useful. And for whoever that feels like is having a bad day, it'll get better. That's it. I don't know. What else can you say? Time is the most valuable resource. So for me, just the fact that someone is listening to what I have to say is an honor, because it doesn't come back the time. So I hope that it was useful. Monica, thank you. It's an honor as always. And I'm very grateful, and I'm very proud because you're Colombian too. So thank you very much. Yeah. Go Colombia. Yeah.